Today we're going to be talking about one of the coolest things that I've ever done for my Christian experience, and that's going to Israel. Joining us today is one of the top, if not the top expert in Holy Land travel. We're going to be going over what the travel looks like, how much it costs, and how COVID impacted their business.
What's up, guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome to the Snipe Life, where we talk about creativity through the lens of Christianity. And today's video is going to be a really cool one. When I was in high school, my youth pastor gifted me a trip to Israel. I know it's insane, but we were really close, and him and his wife brought me along on a trip, basically as a Christmas present to me. And so in my junior year, I got to go to Israel for a 10-day trip, and it was really, really life-changing for me. So much so that when me and Vanessa got married, I knew that the one thing that I really wanted to have her do with me is to go to Israel again. So for a second time, I got to go with her after we got married. So today we're going to be talking with two of my really good friends from church who I've known a really long time. They run a business called Imagine Tours and Travel, and this is one of the premier travel agencies to go to the Holy Land, and many other places as well. I really wanted to get their perspective on what's happening over there, not only with COVID, but also just in general, and kind of explain why I think every single Christian should go to Israel.
I'm Rick Ricart with Imagine Tours and Travel. We are a family company, second generation. We specialize in biblical tours. We're a tour operator that do tours to Europe and the Middle East, and also South Africa and all throughout Europe.
I'm Amy Ricart, and I am the CFO / HR / any other title that you could possibly throw at me at this point in time.
He started the business originally. He was one of the original founders in the tourism business before there was even a tourism board. We're talking the 1950s. Israel only became a nation in 1948, so it was shortly thereafter. He and I believe 6 or 7 other men formed a company, and at that time it was Wholesale Tours International. And they started what was today the very first tour company from North America, taking groups to the Holy Land. I've been over 100 times. I wouldn't know now the exact number, but I try to get over at a minimum 3 to 4 times a year. Some years I've gone more than that. It's always refreshing. It never gets old. A typical tour is usually 10 or 12 days. Primarily, we work with ministries, so churches, congregations, literary magazines, colleges, universities, things like that. And what makes us a little unique in the marketplace is, we customize every single tour that we do. So literally no 2 tours are exactly the same. Trips will vary in price depending on the duration of the trip, whether you do 10 days or 12 days, depending on the time of year. There's different seasonalities, and also depending on your departure city and so forth. But to give you just a general idea, we would tell people to plan somewhere right between your upper 3,000 to 4,000 mark for a typical 10-day, and then it can just go on from there.
Now, obviously as Christians, we understand that Israel is this special place, but I think there's so much more to it than we realize. And when you go there, things just change your perspective. And so here's Rick talking a little bit more about that.
Oh, that's a great question. First and foremost, I think the Holy Land is so special because it brings the scriptures to life. There's something about actually walking in the land where Jesus walked. We like to joke and say you're going to run where Jesus walked, and you probably can attest to that having traveled with us. But the reality is to see the scriptures just come to life, to actually visit the places that you've read about, you've been taught on, places that you envision in your mind what you think that they look like, but to understand and see the topography and understand that and the geography, and then just meeting the people, it's phenomenal. It kind of connects the dots. It makes it real. We like to say when you read the scriptures or you read the Bible firsthand, you're reading it black and white, and then you go to Israel and you see it in living color. It's 3-dimensional. You can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it. It's incredible. I don't think you can read the passages in the scripture in the same manner after being there.
It's truly one of those places. It's one of the few places you can literally go. My feet are touching the same ground, the same area. There's no way to explain it. That's one of the best parts, is when you have somebody that calls you and says, oh my gosh, this changed my life, and that's a great feeling because, that's the reason. That's why we decided that we wanted to do this, is because we wanted people to have that life-changing experience.
I really couldn't agree more with the Ricarts here. One of the most important things that I found for myself, if you take one thing from this video, take this. When you go to Israel, it changes your perspective on how you read the Bible. And so it changes it from reading a fictional story to remembering what things look like. So when you read about Jerusalem, in your mind right now, if you haven't been to Israel, you have this picture of what Jerusalem looks like. You have this picture of what the people of Jerusalem look like. And it's false. It's just wrong because you haven't experienced it. You haven't seen it. But when you go to Israel, you see it. You see the gates. You see the streets. You see the people. You can walk the way that Jesus walked through the city. It's an immense perspective shift for you as you read through the scriptures. And so if you take one thing from this video, if there's one reason for you to go to Israel, this is it for me.
My favorite location, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one. It's constantly changing. I mean, they're doing archaeological digs every day. Every time you're there, you see something new. There hasn't been a time I've been there where I haven't seen something new or something's been revealed. I would definitely say the Sea of Galilee. There was a reason why Jesus did the majority of his ministry in the Galilee. Probably because it's not a big city. It's still today very much as it would have appeared in the same time as Jesus. Forget about the hotels and the restaurants and stuff like that, but when you actually walk along the shore of the Sea of Galilee and you see it, you visit the Mount of Beatitudes, things like that, it's incredible.
I love the Garden Tomb, and I know that there's a whole thing behind it. Some people are going to tell you, no, that's not the site, and other people are going to go, yes, it is the site. But I'm not as hung up on whether or not it's the actual archaeological site, but it's just the peaceful feeling that you get there, and there's enough things there that back it up that I tend to believe that that's the site, but I'm not an archaeologist. I don't know any of that. It's just when you realize that this is where it all happened, I think you feel connected to it no matter where you're at. If you're on the Mount of Beatitudes, it's amazing to look at that and picture it, because when we talk about the Bible coming alive, you think about, okay, you're on the Mount of Beatitudes, you're doing these things, you picture it completely different. You think that he's up on this mountain and he's talking down to the people, and he's not. He's down at the bottom and he was talking up to them, and the natural acoustics of the place amplified his voice. And so I can only imagine sitting on the side of that mountain, looking out over the Sea of Galilee, listening to Jesus speaking to you, and being able to hear him clear as day. I mean, it's those things that you can't explain. You have to see it. You have to experience it.
When most people think about Israel, they think about the conflict, but we wanted to get their perspective on the safety of Israel.
Usually I've always been asked, is it safe to travel? Israel is by far probably one of the safest countries you could ever travel. It's as safe as the United States, if not safer in many aspects. I remember when I first started in the business, well over 28 years ago, they had the same question asked then. And I had somebody explain to me that, Israel has what they call the safest cities in the world, but their borders were the most unsafe. Here in the United States, we've always looked at it differently. A lot of our major cities, we think of them as being unsafe. We actually have safe borders, but Israel doesn't. And therein lies the difference.
I mean, when you're going to the sites that we're sending our groups to, I don't even think twice about it. It's honestly, it's probably one of the safest places. I feel safer walking there at night than I would walking in downtown Chicago at night. I think with anything, you're going to find that maybe you feel a little uncomfortable just because of your own fears or anxieties. But in all the times that I've been there, I've never had a moment where I've been like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, or maybe we shouldn't be here. It's always felt safe. I've never encountered anybody that I've ever felt like was going to do me harm. It's a little bit different experience, because when you get there, you see soldiers and they're carrying their machine guns and AK-47 and whatever caliber guns that they've got. But I mean, they're there and they're everywhere, and that's probably something that adds to your sense of safety versus taking away from it.
So when we went there in 2017, we actually did a little outing at at night after the tour. And we got on this tram. In the tram came in all these soldiers with their guns and amazing stuff that, again, I felt safe, but it's also kind of like respect was there. We had this fellow traveler who carried a breakdownable hula hoop. And she put it together and she started playing with it. And then one of the Israeli soldiers actually asked if he could play with it. And so he actually put his gun down and started doing it. And it was hilarious. It was one of the best experiences of our trip.
Now, one of the most important things that we wanted to talk about with Rick and Amy is how COVID has impacted their business over the last year. And to be honest, it's a little worse than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I would say March 12th was, the D-Day when everybody declared COVID and the world stopped as we knew it. I would say, all international travel from a standpoint, at least from what we do, had stopped. You can still travel abroad into some, certain countries, but there's a quarantine in place. Right now, Israel is closed. They have a closure. They even closed their airport this past week as well, and they've extended their closure throughout just to try to minimize the number of COVID cases. They also happen to be the number one vaccinated inoculations. They have a population of a little over 9 million inhabitants, and they've now just gone over the 4 million mark. So it's pretty incredible in that sense. But our business has taken a complete standstill. We've rescheduled, hundreds and hundreds of groups. The irony of all of that is people still want to go. We hear from people the disappointment. What do you mean I have to, reschedule or postpone my trip? At first, it's very real and they're a little upset or frustrated. And then when they realize it's not us, it really just comes down to the fact that, our government and the other governments aren't allowing the travel as they're trying to contain it and not spread it. That has a lot to do with it. That all being said, the majority of them are wanting to reschedule. Most of them are, looking to go forward even as this summer or for the fall. We have tremendous amount of bookings for next year and even the year after.
Not gonna lie, it's been hard. It's definitely one of those when we just had this conversation where it's completely out of your control. I mean, this is definitely one of those faith things because there's nothing we can do. We're literally sitting back and waiting to see when countries are going to open, when, the COVID numbers are going to go down to the point that people are okay with Americans coming into their country. So it's been hard. And if we didn't have our faith, I don't even know how you make it through something like that. They've been looking forward to these trips, and when they can't go for whatever reason, they think they might be too old by the time that travel opens back up, or they've got some type of a medical condition and they don't think that they're going to be able to physically handle the trip. It's hard. But in that, we also have had some wonderful clients, some wonderful pastors that, they say the same thing. They go through and they're like, you know what? We're all going to get through this together. So they have faith in us, and we love our clients. We love the people that trust us to allow them, to take care of all those details, to send them overseas. And that's a lot, that's a huge thing when they're going thousands of miles away and they're trusting us to make sure that we have everything together.
I would probably say if you haven't gone to Israel, you owe it to yourself. I have never had anybody who's gone to Israel not tell me they should have done it sooner in their life, particularly as a Christian and being, with your walk with Christ. There's nothing like going and experiencing it. Most people wait until they're older and later they kick themselves because they wish, why didn't I do this sooner?
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. This is our first time bringing someone else onto the channel, and we hope to do this more. We'd love to interview different people around our area, from pastors or musicians or just artists in the area. So let us know if you have any ideas. Who would you like us to have on the channel and talk to? What perspectives would you like to see? I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. As always, we love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.